So if you need that, but we will be starting just momentarily.
Fueron tantos bellos y malos momentos que vivimos juntos. Los detalles, las pequeñas cosas, lo que no parecía importante, son las que más invaden mi mente al recordarte.
Uvalde. Please help me welcome Pastor Gavin Rogers with Corazon San Antonio for our prayer this morning.
I'm expecting you, like me, are tired of thoughts and prayers. Praying is not magical. Prayer should be real acts of love. If these prayers don't lead us into action, then they fall flat and make our love insincere. So let our eyes be focused on each other today. I want you to turn around. People in the front, look at the people in the middle. Keep your eyes open during this prayer. It might feel uncomfortable, but the answer of this prayer are the people around you right now. So in this tension, let us genuinely pray. Gracious God, in whom we live, move, and have our being, look kindly on the world you love, and especially on those affected by the violence inflicted upon the children and the teachers in Uvalde, and to too many other places around this nation each and every day. Be with everyone affected by the terror and give peace to all families who have lost loved ones. We cannot conceive, nor can I, the appalling strangeness of the mercy of you, O God. May you so move in the human hearts that barriers which divide us may crumble, suspicions disappear, and hatred cease. We hear peace only as a faraway dream. We long for it in our lives, in the lives of our families, our friends, our country. But with each passing day, the prospect for peace seems to be increasingly tantalizing. Relentlessness seems to be the order of our present existence. Our inner restlessness rooted in various anxieties by our social restlessness, rooted in the evils that go on around us, plagued by conflicts of all sorts, plagued by forms of inaction of all sorts. May we pray this morning and this afternoon that we may experience that peace that passes all understanding. We pray, O God, that we may experience love, the peace of the world, the peace of our country, which is divided and fragile. Peace for our children who have been targeted with violence and policies that fail them. May they, as a beloved community, be an agent of healing to all of us. Lastly, as we look around this place, look around at each other, disturb us into action when laws don't make sense. Help us make policy out of the disharmony of conflict and chaos. Let our restless hearts rest in you. Let us stand with Uvalde and all those affected by violence. Let us not leave unmotivated, but help us become the salt and light in our neighborhoods, our schools, our governments, all reminding us to embrace the present and never forget those around us right this very moment. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Marisa Perez-Diaz, President and CEO of Voto Latino.
Muchísimas gracias, San Antonio. Thank you all for those who have showed up in solidarity. I have to tell you that Voto Latino, we go around the country, oftentimes rallying folks under different circumstances. And at Voto Latino, if I were to say that this was easy, it is not. I was in Uvalde yesterday, and I witnessed a community that is torn, that is in pain, and once has resolve, and was telling members of the state senate that they want folks to give them hell. That means our job is very clear. Today, we are here to recognize the senseless death of 19 children. As a mother of a fourth grade, 9-year-old girl, having to witness a child buried that could have been very much my own, I have no words. But what I do know is that Uvalde is strong because of every single one of you here and those at home tuning in, and this will not be in vain. I want to take a moment first to honor the 19 children and the 2 teachers who lost their lives, and take a moment to recognize and center ourselves around them, our wherewithal, our love, and just as importantly, our fierce determination to change the course of Texas today. McKenna Lee Elrod, Leila Salazar, Miranda Matis, Naveo Bravo, Jose Manuel Flores Jr., Javier Lopez, Tess Marie Mata, Rejolio Torres, Eliana Eli Amilia Garcia, Eliana A. Torres, Anabel Guadalupe Rodríguez, Jackie Casares, Yaisi Carmela Lubenos, Maite Juliana Rodríguez, Jaila Nicole Seguero, Irma García, Eva Mireles, Amarí Jo Garza, Alejandra Lexi Ania Rubio, Alicia Ramírez, Uzia Garcia. Let's all take one moment. As a proud American, Latina, saying those names of Latino American children pains me in no way that I can ever imagine. But the reason we are here is to stand in solidarity with Uvalde. 100% of the proceeds that are raised today will go to that community. I spent some time yesterday in the clinic and recognized the incredible resources that they need. But let's not be mistaken. Voto Latino is the largest voter registration effort in the country. When we come to town, we help change the direction of the course of communities because we mean business. Someone earlier today asked me, well, what is it that the Latino community wants? We want respeto, dignity, recognition for our hard work because we are not takers. Every single one of you comes from a proud heritage of givers, doers, builders, sacrificers, and love. And oftentimes people like to be very quick and divide us and say that we live in red states and blue states. That is not the case. We are a non-voting state here in Texas. Because when people come together, we have a very different view of our future. 5 million people of color sat it out last time in Texas. 3 million of them who are Latino. By this next election, we're going to have close to 300,000 Latino youth eligible to vote. It is time for us to recognize that the change happens here with each of us. And I couldn't be prouder of the people that are here today, representing the state of Texas, but recognizing las ganas que necesitamos para cambiar el destino de nuestro futuro. I will tell you something, and I think you're absolutely right. In order for us to change the course of where we are, we have to elect individual people who do not bear the interests of a few, but who center every single policy around our children, regardless of zip code, regardless of creed, regardless of color. And the only way we do that is with incredible leadership. And you have incredible leadership here in San Antonio. Later on today, we're going to hear from Representative Joaquin Castro, who is fighting every single day to change gun legislation in Washington. We're going to hear from Roland Gutierrez, who's trying to do the same thing at the state Senate. We're going to hear from Julian Castro, our former presidential candidate, but don't beat him out yet. We're going to hear from Beto O'Rourke, the next governor perhaps. We're also going to hear from Coach Popovich, because this is not a political issue. This is very much about who we are. But first, I want to introduce you to the First Lady, Erica Prosper Narenberg, who does not need an introduction for all the hard work and deep belief that she has for the people of San Antonio and for Texas. We're grateful for all the work that she does, keeping in the limelight centered the importance of encouraging people to participate, to change the course, because when I share with you that everything lies within ourselves and centering ourselves around the vote, we can't go at it alone. But when I hear that 4 million, 5 million Texans sat it out, that's work to do. That's a clear call to action. And with that, Erica, I want to thank you so much for your time, and please give it up for the First Lady.
Good morning and buenos dias to my beautiful San Antonio and those that are visiting in solidarity with Uvalde. Like many here, I have been hurt by what happened in Uvalde in a core way that I find very hard to describe. Uvalde isn't that different from the small border town of Westlaco where I grew up. Same feel, same camaraderie, same beautiful faces greeting you because it is Texas and it is America. Today I am here as a mother and as First Lady of the 7th largest city in this country and one of the largest majority Latino cities in the nation. And in that role for the last 6 years as First Lady, my goal has been to have our children grow up with a mindset of resiliency, creativity, empathy, and entrepreneurism. A purpose which at its center holds the committed belief in the endless potential of a child, the endless potential of our children and the children of Uvalde. If you read up on our kids, you will see report after report telling you that they are the most ethnically diverse generation in the history of the United States. They are also observed to be more accepting and more generous than a generation we've seen in a long time, and one of the most self-sufficient members of society. Their nickname, in fact, is the self-taught generation. When I think about what I wanted when I was growing up picking the fields of South Texas, one of the most pressing drivers of my life was that someday I would give my own child a better life. Like most parents in our state, we work, we toil, sometimes we don't eat, but we do it so that our children would have the freedom to be more generous than we could ever be. We do it so that our kids will be more accepting and see more people like them rise. Basically, we did it so we could see them grow into the generation that they are now. The very generation I just described that is gracing the halls of schools everywhere. Because diversity, acceptance, generosity, creativity, and self-sufficiency are all markers of what we have been told America has chased and labored and risked for. These are the exact qualities we have spent decades marching for, breaking ceilings for, opening doors for, and now the humanity that we have longed for is finally taking shape at the desks of elementary schools, of middle schools, of high schools, of colleges. Woo! Right now, the great American promise that has rallied our country through 246 years is here finally. It's in their beautiful faces. It's in their beautiful faces and their open hearts and their voracious brains. Our children's potential is the single most valuable outcome that America needs in order to be what it was always meant to be. We need to protect that potential. Our elected officials need to protect that potential, and our vote needs to protect that potential. And we're not talking about wishful thinking. We're not talking about platitudes or hypotheticals. Uvalde had living, breathing fruitions of my dreams and your dreams and your dreams. Their potential and our children's potential must be secured with more fervor and sometimes more fury than ever before. And as First Lady of San Antonio, I ask that all First Ladies, whether you're a mother, a grandmother, a tia, a madrina out there, I ask for the unity needed to move the mountains in the months to come. I ask for the unity to stay focused as we swell into action, and the unity that is needed to collectively protect that better life that we promised our children and that our country has promised itself. You're going to hear from speakers today with their own passion and experience to share. They're necessary passions and points for the dialogue ahead. They're necessary passion and points for the action and unity ahead. And sometimes they are necessary passion and points to be the thorn on the side of those who do not act. Right. Right. Yeah. On behalf of my husband, Mayor Ron Nirenberg, who is out of town and could not be here today, I want to welcome all of you here. I want to welcome you to the start of the swell, and I want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for starting your commitment or continuing your commitment by hearing what we have to say today. Thank you, and thank you for standing with Uvalde.
Thank you to the First Lady of San Antonio, Erica Prosper Nirenberg. Now, ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome State Board of Education member for District 3, Marisa Perez-Diaz.
Buenos días, aunque es con mucha tristeza que nos juntamos aquí hoy. As we gather this morning, let us hold space and center and honor the families and community of Uvalde, Texas, who have suffered unimaginable loss. our thoughts and our prayers, the proverbial thoughts and prayers, are with you. But more importantly today, our actions and our call to action and moving forward from here are with and for you. Grief and frustration and anger have brought us to this moment, one in which we are at a loss for words because nothing, absolutely nothing, that we can say will ever fill the void that so many have lost. A moment at which we find ourselves at an inflection point. Between 1984 and 1990, when I was 6 years old, the U.S. saw one mass shooting on a school campus, and we experienced the loss of 6 individuals at that point. That was my reality as a 6-year-old. Between 2016 and today, 2022, our country has seen 4 well-documented mass shootings in schools. We've now experienced the senseless loss of 52 lives. My daughter is 6 years old today. This is the reality that she is living in, and we're not even halfway through this year. This is the reality that so many of our young generations are experiencing. And this is only reflective of mass shootings and domestic terrorism that's taking place on school campuses across this country. Since 1984, when I was born, there have been numerous mass shootings that have taken the lives of so many Americans, and it has got to stop. We cannot become desensitized to this, and we have got to demand change, because we can do better and be better for our children, and they don't deserve any less than that. Serving as one of only 15 members on the Texas Board of Education, it is not lost on me the immense weight that we carry on our shoulders to create public education policy. Everything from setting our curriculum standards to approving governance training for our school board members. All of these things are so incredibly substantial, and it's our responsibility to the education community and the millions of children in Texas. For those of us who work in education, we get into this work because we're passionate about really impacting the future of our young people, providing them with hope and inspiring them to be and do great things. It is never our desire to be forced into the responsibility of arming ourselves around 3- and 4-year-olds just to get that done. And while I am a strong advocate for social and emotional learning, a tool that can be used to address the mental health issues, the mental health crisis that is plaguing our young people in schools today. A tool that has most recently come under fire and attacked by some who will intentionally conflate these learning strategies with polarizing narratives. I recognize that responsible gun reform is absolutely critical and necessary for stepping forward in this healing process. This is a multifaceted health safety issue, and we have got to address it from all fronts. For my part, as your State Board of Education member, I am committed to continuing to support social and emotional learning, restorative justice practices, inclusivity, diversity in our curriculum. It is critical, and that is my promise to you today, because I am angry. I am angry. But I moved to action. I moved to action, and this action is what got me into this position. This action is what will get us all to the next step.
Let's get angry!
Let's get angry. And let's hold our legislature accountable and demand that they put in place measures to protect our families and our communities. This morning as I left my house to come here today, it was raining. And as I looked up into the sky, I thought about a quote I had read many years ago. The drops of rain make a hole in the stone, not by violence, but by oft falling. The opposition to gun reform is represented by that stone, and each one of us, a raindrop. We will punch a hole in anti-gun reform movements if we together oft fall, mobilize, and vote. And the last thing I will say, and it's because my heart is with public education and this is my life's work, I'm speaking to my fellow educators across this state and across this country. If you mobilize your peers and you get out to vote, our country will look very different. You have the power to make these changes. Work with your elected officials, call us to task, and hold us accountable, and make sure we get this done because our kids deserve it. Our future counts on it, and my babies count on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa. Please help me welcome Ramon Contreras with gun violence prevention activist.
Hello, San Antonio. How are you today? My name is Ramon Contreras. I'm a gun violence activist and co-founder of Youth Over Guns. I'm based out of Harlem, New York. The truth is, this is a hard day. Not only a hard day, but it's been a hard couple weeks in America. With Buffalo, Uvalde, and the shootings across the country that go unnoticed, the lives taken, the trauma spread. On October 1st, 2017, 60 people were massacred at a concert in Las Vegas. On the other side of the nation, in Harlem, New York, that same night, my friend, who I was supposed to graduate with, go to prom with, go to college with, was shot and killed by an illegal handgun. It's something that forever changed me. Seeing a friend or a loved one in a casket forever changes you. It's an uncurable pain and trauma that you carry with you for the rest of your life. It's a burden of weight whenever a mass shooting happens that we carry with us. It's also a truth about America, a truth that we can no longer ignore, a truth that stares at us right in the face when mass shootings like Uvalde happen, when in the Bronx, an 11-year-old is shot and killed before she can even start her life, when in Buffalo, innocent black lives are gunned down by just doing their daily life routine, by shopping. It's a truth that we have to face. It's a truth that's hard. On June 2nd, 2018, I decided to take action. I organized a rally of 10,000 people in New York where we came together and carried a casket to symbolize the deaths in Black and Latino communities. And coming together, events like this, events like the ones in New York, and the events that are to come, are so vital in ensuring that we fight this epidemic of gun violence in the United States. And I believe we can. There's also another thing that we can do, and I'd like to share a story about that. My first time in Texas in 2018, in Houston, I was speaking on the steps of City Hall, and across the street, there were men with AR-15s who decided to come and protest students, shouting, "You won't take our guns." I've never experienced such a thing, but I crossed the street and spoke to one of the gentlemen across the street who had an AR-15. He had an AR-15 across his chest and a pistol around his leg. Something I've never seen before coming from New York. I told him, let's put politics aside and let's talk about our stories. I'll tell you about my friend that I lost, and I want to know why you are here counter-protesting us. or we're just here trying to change laws that can prevent children from dying. We spoke, and we actually ended up agreeing on some very common sense gun policy. This is a Republican, all right, a diehard Republican, somebody who was yelling at me with an AR-15. It was from that moment forward that when we agreed and we took a selfie and we shook hands and exchanged numbers and we interacted with each other and communicated that this man was not my enemy and I was not his. The truth is that Americans do believe in common sense gun control. And as much as we have to organize and rally, we must also reach those who do not yet know that we're not their enemies, who do not know that they're part of this movement. I believe more than ever that there can be in America where not a single person is shot and killed. Some call me crazy. When you face the trauma, the pain of seeing somebody you love taken by a bullet, you have to find the courage. You have to find something, and that something is a vision that this country will pass common sense gun control laws. This country will one day get rid of the weapons of war that are in our streets. And not a single life will be taken, even if it takes a lifetime. The people here, the people behind that tent, we will make it happen. It's so important that we go out and vote this midterm election. We continue to vote, and we've seen change, but more is required. I want to thank everybody again for being here, and I want to encourage you all to stay active, stay in this movement, and don't give up. If victims like myself and survivors that you'll hear from are still here speaking to you years later, don't give up. We believe in that vision, and we need you to believe in it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ingrid Alvarez, Vice President for Policy and Strategic Engagement for the Hispanic Federation.
Saludos, San Antonio. Greetings. I come before you today from the state of Connecticut. My name is Ingrid Alvarez, and I am the Vice President for Public Policy at Hispanic Federation. Let me first start by saying to the families and community of Uvalde that we see you, that we love you. Our heart hurts and weeps at the inhumanity that you have faced and the pain and suffering that you're enduring. I stand before you as an outraged mother, the mother of Max and Nina, and the wife of a remarkable 5th grade elementary school teacher from a neighboring school district to Newtown. A community of children and parents whose lives were forever torn apart and changed on December 14, 2012. You know, the most sacred bond of a community is the bond between a mother and child. Protecting and honoring that bond is the basic responsibility of any civilized society. When that bond is broken, in fact, when it is constantly ripped apart by the horrific violence of weapons of mass destruction, then you are left with a broken and shattered nation. When the Sandy Hook massacre happened, when 20 children between 6 and 7 years old were killed in their school, and we were convinced that our nation's leaders would act and that this would never happen again. Almost 10 years to that date, we stand here yet again, mourning, this time Uvalde, Texas, with parents, families, and communities torn apart because our elected officials refused to pass meaningful gun reform, because these so-called political leaders in the state and Washington, D.C. refused to protect the sacred bond between a mother and a child. As mothers from Texas, Connecticut, Michigan, California, and every part of this country, we need to lead the revolution to end the unfettered access to guns that we have in our nation. My fellow mothers, I say to you, if we don't do it, it won't ever get done. And the best way for us to do that is by organizing, mobilizing, and making sure we lead our communities to vote around a clear message Ni uno más. Not one more. And whichever politician gets in the way of that will then say, pa fuera. We will vote them out of office. We believe, and in fact we know, that there is nothing that mothers can't do. The Hispanic Federation and our sister organizations stand ready to help you lead. Let's go get this. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Welcome now, Edna Sanchez, State Executive Committee Member with Brady United.
Buenos dias, San Antonio. Even the heavens are with us today because it's not 100 degrees. That's wonderful. Death by firearms is the biggest cause of death for children between 1 and 19 years old in our country. Déjeme decirlo en español. Muerte por armas de fuego es la causa número 1 de muertes de niños entre 1 y 19 años. My name is Edna Sanchez, and I'm here from Broward County, Florida. Yes, Parkland is 20 minutes from my home. 23 years ago, I had a toddler, 2 years old, and I was feeding him in his high chair, and Columbine happened. I could not imagine that somebody would do harm or want to do harm to my beautiful curly-haired boy. He's 25, and I'm still here. I became a single-issue voter. My litmus test is if you want sensible gun laws, I'll vote for you.
Right.
If you don't, you're out. I'm firing you. I helped organize 13 states in the southeast of the United States for the Million Mom March to prevent gun violence on Mother's Day of 2000. And I saw women working from their basements with pseudonyms that even their husbands didn't know that they were organizing buses to go to Washington. It turned out to be the biggest gun violence prevention march to that date. Almost 1 million people showed up. And it is today the most important thing I've ever done. And I have not stopped speaking and to the media and whenever I have the chance about preventing gun violence. You have to have this litmus test because Hispanics, Latinos, children, our Latino children are being killed at twice the rate as white kids. So if you can imagine, gun violence is the #1 killer of children. Where in the Western world is that seen?
Only here.
It's
Mike.
hello. There we go again. Hey. So to this day, and now it's even worse. One of the most frustrating days for me was in September of 2004 when Congress allowed the assault weapons ban to expire. That was so frustrating. And I was only at it for 5 years at that point. And then came so many massacres, and the assault rifles were the main weapon. Then came Sandy Hook, and that was one of the most difficult days of my life, having to relay to the Spanish language media what was happening and listening what was going on the field, because I was working with Univision, and I could hear the producers crying and relating, okay, we need to cover this or that. Put me out of work, please. Let's go vote. Let's go vote and take 5 people with you. People, you need to vote. It's the most important thing. It's the only way we can fire those who do not want to protect our communities. Okay, fire them, and you can do that with your vote. And somebody tells you they're not into politics, ask them, do you want to drink clean water? Do you want to drive on roads? Because if somebody is for common sense gun legislation, that person is going to have enough empathy to protect other aspects of our daily life. Right. Thank you very much, Texas. Please go vote.
Thank you, Jada. Just as a reminder, don't forget there's a lot of water out in the park if you get thirsty, so please don't hesitate to get some water. Please welcome Jose Alfaro, Director of Latinx Engagement, Everytown Gun Safety Support Fund.
Buenos días, San Antonio. Buenos días. My name is Jose Alfaro, and I'm the Director of Latinx Leadership and Community Engagement at Everytown for Gun Safety. I work with our Moms Demand Action chapter in Everytown to engage Latinos across the United States. This week, I drove from Houston to Uvalde to support a community in mourning. We stopped at the memorial site across the street from City Hall, and we went to Robb Elementary School to pay our respects to a community in mourning. One by one, I said their names. The names of 19 children and 2 teachers that did not get to go home on May 24th because somebody who had access to a gun legally decided to take their lives. This is another devastating tragedy in our communities, a community that is already disproportionately impacted by gun violence. How many more of our kids have to die? How many more of our children have to die? How many more funerals do we have to attend?
Not one more! Not one more! Not one more! Not one more!
How many more t-shirts do we have to print? And how many more murals do we have to put up in our communities in order for elected officials to listen to us? Our communities already bear the brunt of gun violence. From gun homicides to police shootings to a spike in gun suicide and the mass shootings that happened here in El Paso, Texas, as well as to our compatriots in Orlando, Florida at Pulse nightclub. And still no action. 4,100. That is the number of lives stolen from us each and every year in our communities. Another 13,000 are shot and wounded. We're twice as likely to die from gun homicide and 4 times as likely to be wounded by guns than white people. What's even more heartbreaking is that our children and our teenagers bear the brunt of this violence. They are 3 times as likely to die by a gun than their white peers. Yet when we think about gun violence, we often don't think about the impact on Latinx, Hispanic, Latino communities and what happens to our communities across the United States. And we certainly don't hear from the voices of Hispanic activists that are doing the work day in and day out to keep our community safe. Pero aquí estamos, mi gente. This is why it's so important to name what happened in Uvalde, to name what is happening in our communities. This is a Latino issue because gun violence impacts each and every one of us. And that's why we're here today, al frente y presente, to let the world know that we are in this fight too. Entonces, mi gente, con la fuerza de nuestra comunidad, con el coraje que nosotros tenemos para parar esta violencia, de pueblo a pueblo vamos a decir, ni uno más, ni uno más, ni uno más, ni uno más, ni uno más.
Coach Pop.
Obviously, this is an important issue, and you can't hear me? Yes. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear now? So I'm gonna keep it close to my mouth, I guess. Okay. I got all these things I want to say, and I'm not sure if I should do it or not. You know, it's always a good idea to speak truth to power. Because people who are in power want to keep that power, and they'll do anything they can to keep it. And we've learned that here in Texas. I know we all, you know, we've heard all the comments on television from some of our government officials about thoughts and prayers and condolences and on and on and on. And they're the same statements after every massacre. Exactly the same, and it never changes, and more children are dead, and more teachers and more civilians dead. Texas is actually the place where 5 of the worst massacres in U.S. history have taken place. 5 of the worst in the history of our country. And nothing has changed. When our governor, after the last massacre, made statements and promises that he would look at the gun laws, he would look at the legislation, nothing happened.
He lied.
And so when Beto O'Rourke confronted him, you know, the first reaction of the people up on the dais there was, "You're out of line." And whoa, 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 whoa! Who's out of line? You're out of line because you haven't done crap, and 19 more people were murdered. It's just incredible. They think we're stupid. You know, people like Ted Cruz, this is an intelligent man. Well, we know that. He's a Harvard grad. He's no dummy. But he thinks we're dummies. And so he's going to tell us that all the bad things that happen are because of mental illness. Now that's part of it. That's part of it. But if that's true, if it's true that mental illness is important, then why did this government in Texas slash the budget for mental illness? Because, you know, should I say that word, lying? I'm not sure if I say it. But it's like a deflection because they think we're stupid. And so they'll keep bringing it up and bringing it up. But they'll listen to us if we're angry enough and if we're committed enough. Because right now, even Senator Cornyn said something like, well, I'm willing maybe to talk to some of the Democrats about a couple of things. Why is that all of a sudden? Why? Because he's afraid of the vote. Because he's maybe just beginning to be more afraid of all the people who may vote against him and be more afraid of that than the NRA and the gun lobbies and the gun manufacturers. Nobody's trying to take away anybody's guns. Nobody. But they say that, why did this 18-year-old, he probably had mental challenges, but they gave him a gun. They gave him an AR-15. They didn't give him a hunting rifle. They didn't give him a handgun. And the thing that's amazing to me about that, people say, well, how does an 18-year-old, wait a minute, why can anybody buy an AR-15? I shouldn't be able to buy one. You shouldn't be able to buy one. What the hell do you need an AR-15 for? Go buy the hunting rifles and go get that deer, whatever it is. That's great. Most of my friends hunt. I'm not smart enough to hunt. I don't know how to do it. But that's just insane. And when Ted Cruz got confronted by the reporter here recently and said, Mr. Cruz, why does this happen in America? Why just in America? It doesn't happen. It happened in New Zealand, the guns are gone. It happened in the UK, the guns are gone. It happened in Australia, the guns are gone. But here, we keep killing our children. Why is that? He could not answer it. He got defensive, and for a smart man, he was tongue-tied, and he came back with the old phrase, well, I'm sad that you don't think America is exceptional. What the hell does that mean? We're exceptional, all right. We're exceptional because we're the only country that's killing our kids with all these damn guns. So, I want to hear our officials talk about the red flag laws. I want to hear them talk about safe storage laws, you know, and so on and so forth. We've all heard it, but they don't. They want to talk about mental illness because it keeps our eye off the ball. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Cruz. Da-da-da. Killing. So here's a question I would love to, I'd like to get them in a room and tell them you can't leave until we figure this out. You're not going home. You're going to see none of your family. You're going to stay in this damn room until we get some legislation. And you can't dance away and run away and tell us some other crap. So wouldn't you like to just get one of them in a room? I don't care if it's the Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor, the Governor, one of the senators. Get them in a room and say, how many will it take? A massacre a month? 2 massacres a week? 15 kids? 24 kids? When we kill 74 sometime, then maybe you'll do something? Get off your ass. Do something. They work for us. The majority of us want them to do something about the gun laws, and they don't do it because they care more about their power and their position and their money than they do our children. If this happened to one of their children or grandchildren, you think they'd pay more attention? That's an ugly thought. We all hope that nothing like that happens, but we're all built that way. You know, we're all comfortable in our own skin. We're all comfortable in our own opportunity, in our own good fortune. Things, we don't think we're going to get COVID. We don't think that we're going to be racially profiled. Well, I'm white. I've never been racially profiled. You know, it's that sort of thing. We're comfortable because it doesn't happen to us. And I can't understand why they can't have at least enough empathy instead of going to Uvalde and going to these places and saying, we're with you, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, because they already lied before. We know they're not going to do anything, but they still say it because they think we're stupid. So what can we do about this? You've got to vote. And that sounds kind of trite in a way. Okay, we got to vote. But it's true. And the reason it's true is because they've already proven to us that they're not going to do crap. They've lied, they've deflected, they've been full of baloney for a long time. They're not changing. They're not going to change, so we have to change them. And here in Texas, millions, I'm not talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of people are not voting. And you have to understand, you know, the LGBTQ situation wouldn't have changed if people didn't get confronted and we didn't make noise about it. You know, there would have been no equal rights laws in the 60s if people didn't march. Vietnam wouldn't have ended if you didn't see some of those photos on the TV with burning children and that sort of thing. They have to be made to feel worried about their position, uncomfortable, scared a little bit. And if they will not come to us and tell us exactly what their plans are and how they feel about the laws, and we don't want to hear about the mental illness part. We already know about that. Let's do a better job. But if they won't do that, well, all we have left is those millions who aren't voting. We got to get them all out next election, and we got to vote them out of there so that we can save our children. Because I'm sick and tired of 50 and 60 and 70-year-old white men screwing up all of our lives because they're selfish and really care about nothing else but their position. And they'll say, well, that's unpatriotic, or that's mean. No, it's frickin' true. So, I'm going to give you a break because I got to save some for later. But please take seriously the fact that you demand to stop being lied to and treated like you're idiots. They are the people who are almost too smart because they think they're tricking us. And the only way we can get that message is if we vote. So get after it, stick together with it, and save our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Pop. Let's welcome now, representing Texas 20, Representative Joaquin Castro, and former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Julian Castro.
Good afternoon. So I'm Julian, and the one with the beard is Joaquin. First of all, let me just say a huge thank you, gracias, to every single one of you for being here today. It's wonderful to see so many people from our community who have taken time out of their Saturday to be here to express their remorse for what happened in Uvalde, for the children and the adults who lost their lives, and also to express your outrage and determination that something like that is never going to happen again, and we can do something about it. When Joaquin and I were there in Uvalde the other day, and a lot of y'all know Uvalde, I bet we have people here, some folks who grew up there, We have folks who have family there. You know the community that it is. The thing that we kept hearing over and over was that people want for us to do something, and they want change. They know that what happened there can't happen again, shouldn't happen again in this country. The thing is, and Coach Pop mentioned this, you know, this is a uniquely American problem.
Right.
Other countries have video games. Other countries have an entertainment industry. Other countries have schools that don't have locked doors. Other countries have people with mental health challenges. Other countries have deep poverty. Other countries have gangs. Other countries have drugs. Other countries do not have the easy access to weapons of war that the United States has and should get rid of in the weeks to come. This is a uniquely American problem. And that means that it's going to take a unique American determination to change it. It means that all of us are called to summon the sadness and the frustration and the anger and the outrage that we have in our hearts for those little children who died in Uvalde and so many others who have died by gun violence, to channel that into democratic action to make a difference. You know, all of us who saw that tragedy, the massacre in Uvalde, we have seen other American massacres, but there's something that shocks the conscience when you see what a shooter does to little children who are completely innocent little kids. And it's an honor to be here with all of you, to be here with the survivors of different mass shootings who are speaking out, who are still on the quest for change. As a parent, I have elementary school kids. In fact, my wife and I have an 8-year-old, a second grader, now going to 3rd grade. We have a kindergartner, a 6-year-old, and we just had a daughter about a month ago. And I couldn't help, as I'm here, I would drop my kids off to elementary school and pick them up in the afternoon. And over the years, I've looked at the school and wondered what kind of chance they would have if the same kind of shooter showed up at their school. No parent should have to wonder about that in San Antonio or anywhere else across the country. And when I was in Uvalde and I met with a few of the family members who lost kids at Robb Elementary, they asked how it is that an 18-year-old can't go buy a beer at the store, can't go buy cigarettes at the store, but can walk into a gun store on his 18th birthday and buy 2 weapons of war, an AR-15. They asked why it is in the state of Texas that the governor has done nothing about that. In fact, after the massacre in El Paso, where more than 20 people were killed and more than 20 injured, Governor Abbott said he was going to make it harder for these kinds of massacres to happen again. Instead, he made it easier for dangerous people to get dangerous weapons in their hands. And listen, I'll tell you what the Congress is going to do in the House of Representatives when we go back this week. We're going to pass red flag laws because we need them. When people leave clues all over social media repeatedly that they could get violent at a school or a church or a supermarket, or that they're thinking of targeting a particular person or group of people, there should be a red flag law that allows law enforcement to stop them before they kill people. The shooter in Buffalo was in a private chat on a social media platform and shared his plan with 15 people. 15 people. And yet law enforcement was not able to intervene and stop him. We're going to make sure that we limit high-capacity magazines and raise the age for getting these weapons from 18 to 21. And the fact is I want y'all to think about this as people ask you, well, why these weapons? Why an AR-15 or a semi-automatic weapon? Because there's a physical element to it. If somebody can come around here and pop off 15, 20 bullets before any of us have a chance to turn around, we have to do something to stop that from happening. That's why you have to either ban assault weapons or you have to limit high-capacity magazines. One or the other. And Republicans need to pass the universal background check bill that the House of Representatives passed over a year ago and has been waiting for Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate to do something. And I want to get back, as I close, to Greg Abbott. And I also want to thank Coach Popovich. Thank you, Coach, for your outspokenness, for coming out here, for speaking up, for always speaking truth to power. Greg Abbott has the power to do something and to change things, and we can't let him off the hook. It's true that Congress has to act. This governor has to act. If he's serious about saving lives, if he's serious about making sure that these little children in Uvalde didn't die in vain, then there is one thing that he will do this week. And this is how you'll know he's serious and he's going to take action, or he's just all talk. He will call a special session of the Texas legislature and put gun reform on the agenda immediately. Because I'll tell you what, I know if he was governor, Beto O'Rourke would. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Keep up the fight. Keep up the pressure. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Joaquin Castro and Julian Castro. Please welcome now gun violence prevention activist Edna Chavez.
Bienvenidos a todos. Welcome everyone. My name is Edna Chavez and I am from South Central Los Angeles, el sur de Los Angeles, first generation Guatemalteca. We're together today in a disfortunate grief that we all share in common, and that's all due to gun violence. We're here to honor those that were the new future and those that sacrificed to protect those that needed us the most. It went from the streets taking our kids to now schools, clubs, and hospitals. Not even in a bad day. Now in any given day, our life could be taken through the crossfire of gun violence. To see future doctors, lawyers, artists, and many more to be taken from us at such a young age, those that we birth, we care for, and raise, those that innocently give everyone and every one of us love, joy, and reassurance of the beauty when we need it the most, and the confidence that when we need it the most, when little do they know the struggles that we go through in order to protect them. It is our fight, and it will forever be our duty to fight for those that have lost their lives to gun violence. From South Central Los Angeles to Uvalde, and many communities like ours, and those families that have been impacted like ours, the fight y la lucha siempre sigan. Un siglo de ausencia voy sufriendo por ti. In a century of absence, I'll be suffering for you, Los Panchos. The same suffering that brought us here is the same fight we shall put up, and that's against anybody. To honor the children and resonate in the pain we have and continue to share. From the words of Rocío, tarde o temprano estaré contigo para seguir contigo, amor eterno. Remember to vote, get out there, because no vote is too small or too big. Each and every one of us counts, and forever there will always be more of us than them.
Thank you, Edna. Please help me welcome former Congressman for Texas 16, Beto O'Rourke.
Such an honor to be with you all today. I know that we all wish it were under other circumstances. But I'm grateful that you're here nonetheless. In fact, it's necessary that you are here if we're going to change what is happening in our state, in our communities, and especially to our kids. I just met Ramon, who was standing over here. He said, "Hey Beto, I'm from Uvalde. I lost a nephew last Tuesday." To Ramon, to anyone else who has lost somebody in Uvalde over the last 10 days, I just want to say all of us, and I mean all of us, are with you at this moment. And the fact that we have been called together to stand with the people of Uvalde is an incredibly important act at this moment. They need to know that we are with them. And so I want to thank Maria Teresa, the Castro brothers, everyone who helped to put this together today so that we could demonstrate our faith and our trust with the people of Uvalde. They've been through what no one should be through. And as we've learned the names of the children killed, the two teachers who heroically gave their lives, our hearts are with them. And it forces us to imagine what that would be like for us, to lose a child, to lose a grandchild, as Ramon did, to lose a nephew, to lose that teacher who had made the life and death difference for you over the course of your academic career. I also just met a teacher named Nicole, and I wonder how she goes back into the classroom this next August, knowing that this state has just weathered 6 mass shootings over the last 6 years, and has not only done nothing to prevent the next one, but has made it easier for people to carry guns on our streets without a background check, without any vetting, without any training whatsoever. When Greg Abbott signed that permitless carry bill last year, gun violence continued to spike in the state of Texas, and it affects everyone. It affects the people whose names that we learn about in the newspaper, and it affects those whose deaths are so numbingly common we may never know their names. I looked up one of them this morning, knowing that I would be with you here today in San Antonio. Christopher Martinez, 13 years old, was found dead of a gunshot wound in a North Side home 3 days ago. Wasn't a mass shooting, may not have made the nightly news, but his life just as important, as were the 235 other people killed with guns in this community since the start of last year. We need to stand for all victims of gun violence, whether it was self-inflicted, whether they were killed by somebody else, whether it was an accident because they had a firearm unsecured in their home and they picked it up. How many times have we read stories about a 5-year-old boy or girl who accidentally shoots their baby brother or sister or their mom or their grandfather? This doesn't have to continue to happen in this state. I think we all know that, but let us be aware that when those in power and in the positions of public trust into which we have placed them describe this as evil and leave it at that, it's incredibly dangerous. I mean, it's hard for me to argue that that's not evil. But if we leave it at that, evil is supernatural. It's out of my control. It's a matter for God or the devil. I have no agency in the matter. These deaths were not caused by God. They are not a natural disaster. They are not the weather passing through over our communities. These are the choices that each and every single one of us have made, and far too often that choice has been inaction. This is just the price I pay, we may tell ourselves, for living in the state of Texas, for being an American citizen. But this does not happen on any other country on the face of the planet. It's unique to this country, and it's worse more than almost anywhere else right here in the state of Texas. So if this tragedy, if these massacres, these gun violent deaths are the result of inaction, then the answer from each one of us has to be action. The things that we are willing to do in our lives to change this. First and foremost, let us follow the lead of Voto Latino, and each of us dig deep and contribute what we can to support the families in Uvalde. Everybody ready to do that? Second, as Congressman Castro just laid out, there are some common sense reforms to our gun laws that allow us to protect the Second Amendment while doing a far better job of protecting the lives of the people in our lives. Universal background checks. Anybody who buys a firearm in this state must go through one, so we prevent the kinds of tragedies that we're seeing in our communities. Safe storage laws, so these kids cannot get their hands on their parents' gun and use them against themselves or someone else in their school. An extreme risk protection order, so that when someone is threatening to use that firearm, we intervene before it's too late. And listen, I know not everyone's going to agree on this one, but I don't think we should have weapons of war in our communities. Leave them on the battlefield. I don't want to see them in our schools, in our churches, in our homes, in our supermarkets. We know the toll that these weapons with their high impact, high velocity rounds take on our bodies, take on our families, and take on our communities. And the last one, and this is one where Voto Latino has been an exceptional leader, and that is making sure that we overcome the threats and challenges to our democracy right here in the state of Texas. As the congressman pointed out earlier, it is easier for people to take a gun out on the streets of our community than it is to register to vote or to cast a ballot. 7 million of our fellow Texans who were eligible to vote in 2020 did not cast a ballot. 7 million. Those 7 million would never stand for this level of gun violence. Those 7 million would never stand for a complete ban on abortion beginning at conception with no exception for rape or incest. Those 7 million would never stand for our teachers being treated this way, whether it is the STAR test or whether it's critical race theory or whether it's the fact that they're underpaid by $7,500 a year. Those 7 million would stand up for the people who are under attack right now, but we got to bring them out. And the action that is required from all of us is to sign up and to volunteer and to register those eligible voters and to have the conversations with them about why this next election is so important. Action is the antidote to despair. It is the key to victory, and it is necessary if we are going to stand and overcome these challenges at this moment. You all with me? Well, I am with you, and we are all with Uvalde right now. Thank you all for coming out. Le agradezco. Gracias.
Thank you, Beto. Please welcome now founder and executive director of the Austin Justice Coalition, Chaz Moore.
I know I'm not Beto, but give it up for Beto one more time. So I'm Chaz Moore. I'm from Austin. Well, I'm from Houston, but I live in Austin. We run an organization called the Austin Justice Coalition. We're a black-led racial justice group that tries to make the world better for black and brown and poor people wherever we can. I'm gonna be quick because I'm not the fun guy that says a lot of fun things, but I'm here today to share some truth with you, and then I'm gonna go home if that's okay with you all. The first thing, I think I'm one of the only black people speaking today, so I don't take that lightly. I'm not speaking on behalf of the black community because we're not a monolith, but I do think it's important that the brown community, that my Latino community, my Chicano, Tejano, my Latinx community know that the black community stands with you. We love you, we see you, and I hope we use this as an opportunity to unite and just really lean on one another, because there are things happening in this country to black and brown communities that we really have to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is that although this tragedy is the reason we're here today, I think this tragedy and the tragedy that happened in Buffalo, where the black people were killed in a supermarket for just being black at a supermarket, highlights the fact that gun violence is a racial issue in this country. Like, there's a lot of talking points and things you're gonna hear, but like, the fact of the matter is that gun violence is indeed a racial justice issue in this country. In the span of 73 years, when it comes to the black community, 4,900 people were lynched in 73 years. In 14 years, 94,000 black lives were taken due to gun violence. That's a staggering difference. And I'm pretty sure that those numbers are quite equal, if not the same, for the brown communities. So for my allies here, for people that say Black Lives and Brown Lives Matter, you have the Black Lives Matter sign in your yard, and you have the Stand With Uvalde shirt on. If that's a true statement, then you ought to be the first one in November advocating that we have some common sense gun laws. You can't say Black Lives Matter and Brown Lives Matter if you're still on the fence or on the other side of how easy it is to access ARs and other weapons in this country. Last thing, and then I'll say this, because I need some other people that want to talk. I think it's important that, yes, we hold our public officials accountable. Absolutely. We vote them in to make sure that they do things that we ask them to do. However, this is the one bone I pick, and this is why I don't get invited to a lot of places. The blood of these kids' hands, the blood of these kids are not only on politicians' hands, they're on our hands as well. Because Greg Abbott has been in office far too long. The moment we saw that he was locking up brown babies and brown men and brown women at the border with 4 blankets, we should have voted him out. The moment he started talking about what is Texas history and what's not Texas history, excluding Black and brown contributions to Texas history, we should have voted him out. The moment he started talking about what women can and can't do with their bodies, we should have voted him out. So for those of you today that are here because you want to take the picture with Beto and you want to take the picture with Coach Pop, cool, do that. I'm not knocking you. But at some point, we have to understand that the work doesn't start here on this stage. It doesn't start in November. The work starts every day. Every day, we have to make sure, don't clap yet because you don't know how I'm going to finish. Every day, we must be committed to the same energy that we have right now. We can't come out to the march and rally and pat ourselves on the back like we did something. The fact that we gathered in 2020 around George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and we're still here with this mess is because we stopped working in between. I wasn't even going to say this, but I have to say it. Just like black folks have been saying for quite some time, we need to rethink policing. We need to take some money out of policing. Now you see why. Those cops in Uvalde sat outside blocking parents, blocking guardians from going to get their kids, and they didn't do their job that they're paid to do. That's why when black women and brown activists and brown organizers said we need to defund the police, we were telling you need to invest in community violence prevention because the cops can't protect us. 2 more things and I'm going home. The only people that can protect us is ourselves, the comunidad. I like Beto, he's a cool guy. I like the Castros, they're all right with me. They can't protect us. Only we the people can do that. My black and brown people, if you know your history, if you know the lineage of conquistadors that you come from, that same bloodline as Selena, you know that we have built this country. Specifically, we built this state. We have the power. All we have to do is choose and to lean into that. I don't look at anybody behind this stage to save me. They can't do that. That's our job. Just like those parents that ran into that building to save their kids. It wasn't some cops with some badge and guns.
Only that man above can save you, bro.
Everybody don't believe in the man above. It's us. Last thing I'll say this, because I want to give Beto a thumbs up. He's not perfect at all. Absolutely none of us are. He's not perfect at all. But I can tell you this, after spending some time with him last night, I believe that, I honestly believe, and I could be wrong, you can clip this and we'll talk about it if I'm wrong, I think he actually cares about each and every Texan. He doesn't care about the Texans that just live on the west sides of our towns, that go to the nice fancy schools. He cares about each and every one of us. And Beto is not our savior. I don't want people to get twisted in thinking he's our savior. But he can be our champion. And I honestly believe if you are really sick and tired If you're really sick and tired, you're going to do everything you can. You're going to have some difficult conversations with people that you may not want to get them to understand that there are actual lives on the line this November. When I think about Buffalo, when I think about Uvalde, two things come to mind. I think about Buffalo. It was an 86-year-old black grandmother that was in this supermarket when this white psychopath drove 2 hours to go shoot up that place. 86-year-old black woman. I imagine the things this woman has been through. She's been through Jim Crow. She's been through some crazy racist times in this country, only to be gunned down at a grocery store. Because we haven't done enough between the 60s and now to make sure that black lives actually matter. And then when I think about my brothers and sisters in the brown community, hermanos, I know it's kind of bad, but forgive me. I think about these babies that will no longer get to taste that sweet, really awesome feeling of tres leches that maybe their abuela cook or somebody in their family is cooking. And some of these babies, they won't even get to experience their own quinceañeras. Because somebody felt the need to go into these schools and rob them of that. And I want to get it right. The language around this is very important. These lives were not lost. These lives were taken. And I think until we actually understand that these lives were taken because we have not done enough when it comes to guns and access to guns and violence prevention in this country, then maybe we'll do something. My challenge to each and every one of you is to, one, yes, go out, register to vote, encourage people to vote for this guy. He's not perfect, but I guarantee you, he is going to come out and shake every hand. He'll listen to everybody because he wants to build a Texas that's equal and equitable for all. So we have one job as a community in November. The message is very clear. Greg Abbott has to go. And the only way we do that is by tapping in like never before and making sure that every black, brown, and poor person and trans person that has been disregarded in voting conversations and electoral conversations over the last 20 years gets involved. Last thing, and I know I'm over time, I'll say this. What happens in Texas literally changes the world. If we can change Texas blue, I have a brighter hope for this country. To my black community, I love you. To my brown community, to the white community, I love you too. And it's going to take all of us to make sure no more Uvaldes happen. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Chaz. Let's now welcome Luis Hernandez, co-founder and executive director of Youth Over Guns.
Good morning, San Antonio community. How are y'all doing?
Good afternoon.
I'm humbled to share the platform with such brilliant leaders and compassionate organizers, and so I thank you all for having me here today. My name is Luis Hernandez, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of Youth Over Guns. I come to you all by way of Lenape land. Youth Over Guns is a youth-led organization that is building youth power in marginalized communities across the country and leading legislative advocacy to prevent gun violence. And so as I thought about what I wanted to say here today, I was called to the story. I was called to the story of Anne-Marie Jo Garza, one of the 19 children murdered at Robb Elementary. Her contagious smile, her natural diva, and her love for Encanto reminds me of my 9-year-old little sister and 4-year-old niece. Her father, Alfred Garza, his pain reminds me of the horrifying nature of this tragedy. And her mother, Kimberly Garcia, her piercing open letter is a reminder of why I show up and do this work. Because like her, I too have a lot of questions unanswered. The chicken soup in her thermos stayed hot as her body grew cold. She never had a chance to eat the bologna and cheese sandwich I got up 10 minutes early to cut the crust off, Kimberly expressed. And so I ask of you, I pose to you, our U.S. representatives, how many more How many more children will you allow to grow code before you decide to act and do your job? Before you decide to act right now, must we allow gun violence to remain the leading cause of death for children and teens in America? Will you wait until tragedy reaches your doorstep and unoccupied desk? Will you wait till it happens to you to do something? Like so many here, I am tired of the perpetual cycle of violence that you all have allowed to flourish in this nation. Over the past week, funeral home staff have had the responsibility of preparing and helping families choose coffins that are unfathomably small. These are coffins that no one should have to bury. They've had the responsibility of setting up space for families to pray and ask God to allow God to rest their children in eternal peace. That should not be accepted in this country. And so must we allow this to continue to happen? Or will we be courageous enough to address it head on? Mr. President, I revere your steadfast commitment to this issue and your willingness to call Congress to act, but you too need to do more. Leave the tweeting to us and get your fingers to write executive orders until they run numb. To the sitting representatives in Texas and in DC, know that your time is limited. Know that your hands are dripping with blood. Know that we will not allow you to collect a salary on taxpayer dollars while you ignore us. In the words of Kimberly Garcia's Nana, pay attention to what whispers and you won't have to pay attention when it starts screaming. As Kimberly so painstakingly wrote, and as is abundantly clear to all of us here today, now we know there is a more deafening sound that children are screaming. Now we know that there's a more deafening sound than children screaming. Now we know there's a more deafening sound than automatic rifles going off on a Tuesday morning. Now we know that your inaction has spoken louder than all else. Do more.
Thank you, Luis. Now, please welcome Bexar County Criminal District Attorney Joe Gonzalez.
Columbine, 1999, Virginia Tech, 2007, Fort Hood, 2009, Sandy Hook, 2012, Orlando, 2016, Las Vegas, 2017, Sutherland Springs, 2017, Parkland, Florida, 2018, El Paso, Texas, 2018, and this year, Buffalo, and now Uvalde, and Tulsa. I don't know about you, but I'm tired. I don't know about you, but I'm angry. Are you angry? It is now time to do something about this problem of gun violence. My job is to keep you all safe, to keep a jurisdiction of 2 million people safe over there down the street at the county courthouse. But how can I do my job when everyone has a gun? How can I do my job when someone is quick to pull a gun instead of having a discussion? When someone is quick to pull a gun and point it at someone during a road rage incident or at a gas station? We have to do something about the guns that we see in our community. Yes, it's important that we focus on mental health. Yes, it's important that we support gun reforms. We have to have gun reforms. We have to support the red flag laws. We have to support trying to close the loopholes of being able to buy these guns, especially assault weapons, at gun shows and through private sales. We have to do more. We have to get our leaders to do more to change the laws to protect not only Bexar County, not only Texas, but the entire country. Let me tell you what I'm doing. Some of you may have heard that we gathered yesterday, the community, the county leaders and I, Judge Wolf, the sheriff and other leaders, to announce some of our policy. Let me tell you what we're doing in the district attorney's office. I have instructed all of our prosecutors that when they come to court, every one of those cases that involve a weapon, we are going to move to destroy those weapons after every successful prosecution. And you know what? Even if the defendant and his lawyer object to that, even if they oppose our motion to destroy those weapons, we're going to go to the court and we're going to ask the judge to destroy those weapons. Because there's no need to have those guns if you're engaging in a criminal activity. Not only that, it has been brought to my attention that there are these switches that people can use that will convert a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. I am encouraging law enforcement to please file those cases with us, because we here in the district attorney's office down the street are willing, able, and very eager to prosecute somebody that possesses those switches. Because let me tell you, there's no reason to have those switches except for the explicit purpose of annihilating some person, of using that weapon so that it allows you to just pull the trigger and you have rapid fire succession. We need to prosecute those kind of cases. I commit to you that we will do everything we can to make sure that we get those switches and as many guns off the street as we can. Let's support our leaders. Let's do something, and let's do something now. Thank you.
Thank you, District Attorney Joe Gonzalez. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Pulse survivor and gun violence prevention activist Brandon Wolf.
All right, I've been tasked with one thing. Hold on. You didn't see that. First of all, thank you all for being out here. I know it's hot, and I know things are hard. I didn't expect to have to fight like this. And I know that neither will the families and survivors. 6 years ago, I was just content to live a normal life, have a normal job, for things to just be normal. But they're not for me anymore. Truth be told, there are a lot of moments from the worst night of my life that are just foggy. They're blurry faces and fuzzy details, but there are others that are crystal clear. I remember a colorful poster on the wall, a plastic cup teetering on the edge of a sink, looking like it might fall off. I remember cold water from the faucet. Gunshots. June 12th of 2016 changed my life forever. It shattered everything around me and turned the world upside down. In the early hours of that morning, a man filled with hatred opened fire just a few feet from where I was washing my hands at a bathroom sink. Before he was finished, he had killed 49 people and injured 53 more. Most of them queer, Latinos, and my friends. The shooter poured over 110 rounds in to the safest space I knew, from a 6-hour MCX assault rifle. I was so lucky to lock arms with a dozen people that I'd never met before, whose faces I wouldn't recognize today, and slip out an emergency exit before he could find us. But my best friends, Drew and Juan, were not so lucky. 19 of that man's rounds struck and killed them both. Pulse was supposed to be a safe space for me. In a world where home wasn't always safe and church was not safe, for me, a place like Pulse was a refuge. A place I could be myself without having to look over my shoulder first. Robb Elementary should have been safe too. 21 families should have been able to send their loved ones off to school and have them home in time for dinner. 21 families should be together right now planning summer adventures instead of grieving those they loved the most. These headlines are seemingly endless in our country. 26 at Sandy Hook Elementary, 10 in Buffalo, 17 in Parkland, 49 at Pulse, 23 in El Paso, 21 in Uvalde.
246 mass shootings since Uvalde.
246 mass shootings since Uvalde. They're number after number as the body counts pile up, but to me and to us, they're not just numbers. They're missing faces at birthday parties. They're empty seats at dinner tables. They had futures that were stolen from them while our leaders sat on their hands. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. To those who are grieving today, I want you to know something really important. We are not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. We are done accepting this deadly status quo. We are done tolerating empty thoughts and hollow prayers while our lives are placed on the line. We are going to fight to honor the lives of your stolen loved ones just as hard as we fight for ours, because they are worth fighting for. Your families are worth honoring. Your communities are worth defending. Where corrupt political leaders have chosen silence and apathy, we will choose to stand and fight with you. And to those who say it's too soon for this conversation, it's just too soon to politicize this, I say spare me. Give me a break. Doing the right thing is not political. Choosing your constituents, the public you serve, over shady backroom deals, that's not political. Having the courage to say that the status quo is not working and something has to change, that is not political. Saving the lives of our children is not political. Political is staring at 19 tiny coffins and telling us, sorry, there's nothing we can do. Political is watching our communities, your communities, ripped to shreds and just doubling down on the inaction. Political is choosing your campaign bank accounts over our lives. That is what's political. For too long, you have gotten comfortable, coasting from crisis to crisis, escaping accountability for refusing to do what must be done, your jobs. For too long, you gaslit us, insisting that the greatest threats our children face are that they might, heaven forbid, learn that this country was built on the backs of enslaved black people, or have a teacher with they-them pronouns. Well, all along, you did nothing to keep them safe from what was actually killing them. Enough is enough. It is not too soon for this conversation. It is far too late. And we are no longer asking you to join us in this fight. We are demanding it. This is an ultimatum. You show up and fight with us, or you lose your jobs. 6 days after Pulse, we had a funeral service for my best friend, Drew. His mom asked me to be a pallbearer that day, a huge honor for me. And as I was helping push the casket down the aisle, I found myself gripping the side so tightly that I thought my fingers might fall off. It's because I didn't want to say goodbye to my best friend before I found the right words to do so. When we got to the front of the church, I looked down at his casket and I made a promise. I said, I will never stop fighting for a world that you would be proud of. We're not just fighting for a world that my best friend would be proud of. We are fighting for a world that the 21 stolen from us in Uvalde would be proud of. We're fighting for a world where everyone who's been stolen from us would be proud of. We are fighting for a world that all of us can be proud of. There is no time left to wait for someone to come and save us. We have to save us. We are going to have to use our voices, our power, our votes to save each other. So my challenge to you is this: just as we grieve, so we must act. Just as we march, so we must fight. Just as we rally, so we must vote. My best friends, our loved ones, they deserved a future. They deserved a voice. They deserved to be here today. But they're not. And so, because their voices were stolen from them, it's on us to honor them with action. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Brandon. Please welcome Paul Murray, co-founder and chairwoman of the Newton Action Alliance.
Hello, my name is Poe Murray, and I have been leading the Newtown Action Alliance since my 20-year-old neighbor used an AR-15 and 154 bullets to murder 20 children and 6 educators in Sandy Hook Elementary School nearly 10 years ago. Newtown was shattered by the massacre, and we are devastated that Uvalde is now facing the same horrific tragedy. We are also very angry at the elected officials who failed to pass common sense gun laws to protect the students and educators in Robb Elementary School. Kids should be able to go to school and then go home to their parents. Sadly, Newtown and Uvalde will be forever united and linked by a shared tragedy. Newtown knows too well what Uvalde is dealing with right now. There is shock, grief, anger, endless funerals, vigils, media attention, teddy bear donations, thousands of condolence cards, pop-up memorials, and fundraising schemes pretending to support the families. There will be a long road to recovery for the Uvalde community. When the camera crews pack up and leave, and when America is distracted by yet another high-profile mass shooting incident, I urge you all to make a promise to continue to support the survivors in Uvalde. While we ask you to support Uvalde with love and urge you to honor with action, the gun lobby messengers will tell you that we need more guns to stop these mass shootings, but do not believe their lies.
The good guy with a gun is a myth.
That's right, a good guy with a gun is a myth. If more guns made us safer, then why is it that 400 million civilian-owned guns, which is more guns than people in America, have not kept us safe? More than 1 million Americans have been shot, and gun deaths have increased 30% since Sandy Hook. 30%. Guns are now the #1 killer of our children and teens, more than motor vehicles and cancer. That is why we have begged presidents, Congress, governors, state legislators, and local officials to do something, anything. Do something. to prevent another tragedy and work to end all forms of gun violence. Many states have passed life-saving gun bills after Sandy Hook, but many states like Texas have loosened gun restrictions, putting Texans at greater risk for gun deaths and injuries. Even though an average of 4,000 Texans are killed by guns every year, and 4 of the deadliest mass shootings happen in Texas, the elected leaders of this state thought it was a good idea to pass laws to allow individuals to carry guns onto college campuses, reduce the age for carrying handguns from 21 to 18, and allow Texans to carry handguns without a license or training. That is why we have been pushing for federal action. And finally, after a decade of advocacy since Sandy Hook, and 19 more children and 2 educators being slaughtered, a set of comprehensive legislation is moving forward in the House of Representatives. 2 days ago, yes, it's moving. 2 days ago, I sat in the House Judiciary Committee hearing room for 9.5 hours with a mom, Kristen Song, who lost her son Ethan to a shooting related to an unsecured gun. And we witnessed the Democratic Party, the majority in the committee, pass the Protect Our Children Act. Next week, the House of Representatives will raise the purchasing age of assault weapons from 18 to 21. Next week, the House of Representatives will pass a ban on high-capacity magazines and bump stocks. Next week, the House of Representatives will pass background checks for ghost guns, crack down on gun trafficking and straw purchases to get illegal guns off our streets, and strengthen safe storage requirements to protect our children from unintentional shootings. The House will also pass a red flag law, and they are working to ban weapons of war. So what do we need you to do? Okay. There's going vote. But before you vote this November, we need you to call your members of Congress and urge them to support Protect Our Kids Act.
Use your voice. Call them. Use your voice.
Within the next 2 weeks, you will know which members of Congress stood with the Uvalde and parents who love their children, and which members of Congress stood with the gun lobby to promote its dangerous any guns to anyone everywhere agenda. Then, in November, you will have an opportunity to make a choice in the voting booth. The choice will be between the status quo or change. With your vote, you will decide between more children and elders getting hunted by disturbed 18-year-olds with easy access to weapons of war, or choose to end the grip of the gun lobby on politicians so that they will pass common sense gun laws that the majority of Americans and Texans already support. Please, learn from us in Newtown. Learn from Uvalde. Do not wait until gun violence touches your lives to vote or take action. Register to vote with Voto Latina today. Tell your friends and family to do the same. Become a gun safety voter and exercise your right to vote to protect your kids and your families. Thank you.
Thank you, Poe. Please now welcome Kimberly Gutierrez, Senior Manager of Organizing and Partnerships for Community Justice.
So give it up for you and your support that you continue to give. I come here representing Community Justice Action Fund. We are a small, survivor, Black-led organization that fights for community violence intervention at a federal level, at a state level, and at a local level. And I am honored to be standing here with Rose Williams, who runs Big Mama's Safe House here in San Antonio.
Bienvenidos! Thank you for being here today. I know it's hot. You could be anywhere else, but you're here. I am the executive director for Big Mama's Safe House, a nonprofit organization on the east side of San Antonio. If you can look us up on Facebook page, we offer wraparound service. Hablamos español. We will help you with wraparound services. We provide gun locks. We provide safe storage. Let's talk and educate our youth. We have an event coming up June 11th at the Barbara Jordan Center. Please bring your youth. We want youth. Help us to speak to your youth. Please come out. We have a food pantry, toiletries. We have also assisted with housing assistance. If you know anybody that's behind on rent, we will help them. But the main thing is we're there to support our community, domestic violence, anything on gun violence, we are there. 214 Blue Bonnet Street. The zip code is 78202. Thank you.
We take care of ourselves. We need more people on the street that look like us, Black and Latinos, helping each other out, intervening in violence. So please, call your senators, call your local elected officials, tell them that you want community violence intervention funds and intervention programs in your communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Please now welcome, all the way from Arizona, House of Representatives for District 2, Daniel Hernandez.
Buenos días. Me llamo Daniel Hernández y yo vengo desde Tucson, Arizona. Yo soy un sobreviviente del tiroteo donde congresista Gabby Giffords y 18 otras personas fueron heridas o matadas. Y tengo yo una pregunta muy fácil. ¿Cuántos más de nuestros hijos tienen que morir? ¿Cuántos? Good morning. My name is Daniel Hernandez. I'm a state representative, but more importantly, I'm a gun violence survivor. On January 8th of 2011, I was with Congresswoman Gabby Giffords at the shooting in Tucson where she and 13 others were injured and 6 were killed. And I have a very simple question that has yet to be answered by my colleagues on the other side. How many more? How many more of our loved ones, how many more of our kids have to die in these needless, senseless acts of violence? When we're having conversations about policy, we see this tired old playbook. Not now. It's too soon. Wait, don't politicize. The problem is we don't ever have the conversation because people are too afraid of the gun lobby. They think that we cannot have these conversations. But I'm here to tell you, we can and we must. It is important because it's not just about their kids dying. It's about our kids dying, our family members, our loved ones. We need to stand up because we cannot continue to keep asking how many more. When I was 20 years old, I was on the 5th day of my internship when I had to hold together the head of my friend, my mentor, and my Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. I also had to see the bodies of 13 who were injured and 6 who were killed, including 9-year-old Christina Taylor Greene. Many of you are lucky and will never have to see the mangled body of a child riddled with bullets. But for the families in Uvalde, for the people who were the first responders, and for the people all over this country who've seen these needless acts of violence, we know that enough is enough. We must stand up, we must fight back. Our voice is our vote. So that's why I'm honored to be here with Voto Latino, because we know that the only way we're gonna do this is by changing the people that are in office. Because right now, the ones that are in office, they don't care to fight back against the gun lobby. They care more about special interests than they care about us. So when it comes time to vote, let's take a moment to find out who are the people that stand with you and who are the people that stand with the gun lobby. Because it's not just the gun lobby that they will stand up for, it's other corporate special interests. They don't care about us or our communities, they care about themselves and keeping power. So we need to fight back. We need to make sure that we turn out in record numbers. Everyone is expecting us to once again not turn out as a Latino community. But we need to show that not only will we show up, we are going to show up in record numbers. We're going to vote, and we're going to vote these people out, because it is not okay that 19 families of little kids are having to bury them right now in Uvalde, Texas. And for the teachers who gave their lives bravely fighting to protect their kids. Teachers are amazing people who go every single day to make sure that they're teaching the next generation. But no teacher should ever have to go to work and worry about whether or not they're going to have to use their body to shield their little ones. So I ask you to join me, sign up on VoterPal if you haven't already, but we need your voice and we need you to talk to your friends and your neighbors. So when we are met with silence by our elected officials, which happens far too often, we need to come up with a rallying cry. So I hope you'll join me. So when I say no more silence, you say end gun violence. No more silence. No more silence. No more silence. My name is Daniel Hernandez. I am honored to be in this fight with all of you and with the families here in Texas. You know, this is a club that no one ever wants to be a part of. Being a survivor means that you're in for a marathon, not for a sprint. What started 11 years ago for me is now a battle that I've been fighting for to make better laws at the state, local, and federal level. But we need Washington, D.C. to fight back against the gun lobby. And if the people that are there won't do it, we need to get better people. So I hope you'll join us.